So I've kept you all in suspense long enough, I think. We decided to let Zev eat the pizza and to not say anything. And we actually reflected on that decision after the fact because it had been a very, on-the-spot kind of decision. And we decided that had we ended up in the exact same scenario again, we probably would have made the same choice again. Let me tell you why we made that decision the way that we did. First and foremost, it's because I want to speak in the positive and say that kashrut is ultimately about bringing Jews together, to eat together. It's not like we're talking like they fed him hamburger helper. They fed him matzah pizza, okay? And I think that there is something very, very special for those of us who have ever entered into a kosher restaurant and come together to eat, like Fuego Mundo or somewhere else in our community. And that is a positive feeling when you look around the restaurant and realize that the overwhelming majority of people there are eating there for the exact same reason that you are. They're eating there because they want to elevate their kinds of eating in accordance with Jewish ritual practice. There are lots of reasons that we can look at our parashah and say that kashrut came into being. We can talk about the fact that pigs are dirty, they roll around in the mud, that certain animals in the ancient Near East were taboo, and therefore we didn't eat those very taboo animals because other people in the world were eating those animals. But at the end of the day, the choice to keep kosher is a choice to be part of a club that is exclusive to Jews and our family members, and to say that we want to do something a little bit different. I love hearing stories, and I'm sure you've heard them before, about kids who keep Passover in public school. And they go to school and they think they're going to be the only kid in the cafeteria eating matzah while everybody else isn't. And then they look around and they find the other Jews because they also have the matzah sandwiches around the room. And there's something very positive and affirming about that. It builds a shared connection between Jews. Maybe during the year you meet up with other families in the synagogue or during Passover because you know who the families are who keep Passover and you're able to do that together. And so we made this decision for Zev on the fly, but again, we would make it again, because on Passover, we don't want him to feel that as the rabbi's family, we are the only ones keeping Passover. We want him to know that there are other families in the community who are striving to elevate their way of eating in a more Jewish way. Like I said, it wasn't hamburger helper, it was matzah pizza. And that means that from time to time, we are going to run the risk of encountering Jews who use Publix cheese on Pesach. It's not what we do, but I want him to know that we are all part of that special group who makes that decision together. The second reason that we would have let Zev eat what we are now lovingly call the treif matzah pizza incident of 2021, why we would have let him eat it again, it's because we as Jews, and me fundamentally as a rabbi, I don't want to see kashrut observances and difference in kashrut observances as ways to divide Jews from one another, when kashrut is really about finding and seeking ways to bring Jews closer together. One of the wonderful things about my family is that my cousins and my aunts and my uncles is that we all run the gamut of Jewish observance. There are people in my family who are unaffiliated and don't belong to synagogues. We have people in our family who belong to very Orthodox synagogues. And yet, because we all keep kosher to a greater or lesser extent, and we do keep kosher differently, we nonetheless eat in one another's homes. And we do that. Now, that's not to say that when somebody who's a little more observant doesn't come to somebody's home that's a little less observant kashrut-wise, that we don't make accommodations for each other, reasonable things so that we can be supportive. But I want to say that, nonetheless, what I have discovered over the years is sadly that sometimes Kashrut can be used as a negative divider to drive families apart rather than bringing them closer together. I still remember that when I was a kid at the JCC in Philadelphia, when a kid whose name I won't mention because his parents are just so nice, and I know that now, but this one kid, his name was Jacob, used to come to me and tell me that I didn't keep kosher enough, or that I didn't keep kosher. I still remember that. I was in like the 4th grade when that happened. And I remember it because it was so incredibly hurtful that, interestingly, this family that is also conservative, right, and that their child went to me to tell me that as a conservative Jew, I was not keeping kosher enough. Needless to say, that bothers me when that happens. And I didn't want to be the kind of rabbi who was perpetuating that in the community around me. And had I told Zev, or had I gone to that family and said, I'm sorry, your home wasn't kosher enough for us, that would have been exactly what I would have been doing in that circumstance. And I want my son to understand that although there are families that don't keep the same kind of kosher that we do, that within certain parameters, nonetheless, that's acceptable. And I just want to throw out there that with Kitniot on Pesach now, this is an entirely different ballgame. Because now we have houses of Jews who will have popcorn and peanuts and corn and regular Coke and things on Pesach that I know in my head are all fine, even if I don't do them in my home. So I just want him to be aware that that's the case, and that's the second reason I would not have made our decision, or would have parents not made our decision any differently. The third and final reason we let him eat the food is something that Helen was saying earlier, and many of you also touched on a little earlier. And that's because I realized that as a rabbi in that moment, it was not right to shame anyone under that circumstance. And as a rabbi, it is not my job to shame anyone for what they do and what they don't do. What's my job? It's to encourage people to grow Jewishly, to feel validated in their Jewish observance so that they decide they want to take on more things and not fewer things. I'll never forget the first time that we sent Zev on a play date to this particular family's home. They were so nervous that the rabbi's kid was coming over for lunch. And they wanted to know if they could make him grilled cheese and French fries in the oven. And I said, yeah, you can feed my kid grilled cheese and French fries in your oven. And I can tell you the feeling of relief that this family felt when they knew that the rabbi's son could eat in their house. It must have been quite validating for them in their own sense of observance to know that the rabbi and their family would be comfortable in their home during the year. Like I said, Pesach, there might have been some confusion for that reason, right? Pesach, we kick it up a notch. But what we chose was good enough, and what we didn't do was to let them feel like they were being shut out of Judaism. Now imagine how it would have felt had I gone to that family and said, I'm so sorry, what you're doing is not good enough for us. They would have been embarrassed. They might have even said, well, perhaps, if this is how religious people act, why would I want to be like that? Why would I want to take on religion in my life and be like that if that's how a rabbi chooses to embarrass us? Parashat Shmini that we read this week raises very many important questions, but we cannot forget that how our own family chooses to eat or bring us together as Jews is really a statement about what kind of Jewish community we want to build and become. How do we as Jews create a supportive environment, one where we can encourage Jewish growth, and where we can encourage Jews to delve into living a holy life, including adding elements of kashrut, whatever they may be, not eating pork, not eating shellfish, maybe just keeping Passover, trying different things into their lives? I hope that my story this morning, my case study, will remind you that whatever kind of kosher you do or don't keep, know that Zev is going to eat matzah pizza in your home any time of the year. Shabbat shalom.